Okay, welcome back to uh, our continued discussion on government, the three sector economy. And now we are going to discuss today the government budget and the deficit, most importantly. Now, as we all know, that budget is a plan of government expenditure against the government revenues. Now, whenever the revenue is less and the expenditure is more, we say that the budget is in a deficit. So here I have taken an example. The revenue of the government is primarily the tax that the government collects, and the tax is used then on government spending, which is a direct contribution to the GDP, and also to the transfers. So here I've taken an example that if the tax is 100 and the government expenditure and the transfers equals 140, then we have a deficit of 40. Before I move on, just a word about the debt. So the borrowing that the government does 1 year to the next year to the next year, when you add all these up, it becomes the total national debt. Now, please do try to understand uh, that there are various ways of looking at the national debt. Okay. Now, when we were studying, we were given an example of a debt, whether it is good or bad. Let's say a person is earning $70,000 a year, okay, which is an okay amount of money. He's earning $70,000, and you look at the person and you say, "Well, excellent, good. He's earning well." But then the person suddenly reveals to you that he is in debt. He may be earning $70,000, but he's in debt. He owes $3 million to somebody else. Suddenly, you will think that his position is uh, highly leveraged, and he is now drowning in debt. So this is the second piece of information about this person. And suddenly, when this person said to you he was earning 70,000, you thought he was rich and well-to-do. The moment he reveals the second piece of information, that he has a debt of $3 million to repay, he suddenly becomes not very well-to-do or poor in your eyes, despite his earning. But then this person reveals suddenly a third piece of information about him, that someone in his family left him $72 million in a trust fund. Okay. So suddenly, what is $3 million of debt compared to $72 million? So that is the same example can then be applied to a country, to the macroeconomy. The absolute value of debt is meaningless for a country. Okay. That's why large economies, prosperous economies, strong economies, they run a very high level of debt. Why? Because the absolute value of debt in the modern economy is meaningless unless and until you compare it with that trust fund, with that high level of um, reserve, which we will call the GDP. In the case of a country, you don't have a trust fund. So we are just going to compare the debt to the GDP, because your GDP is your ability. GDP shows two things: how well the debt is being used to generate national income, and then how well that national income can be used to pay off or to service the national debt. So it's the ability to pay off the debt which is important. It's the ability to use the debt judiciously to earn more income, which is important for an economy. All right. So now, when a country is, once again, like the person in our example, if it's drowning in debt, then there are two approaches to the problem. One is reduce debt. Okay, look at the formula again. Look at the equation: debt to GDP. So some governments will work on the numerator. They will try to reduce the debt while holding the GDP in place. The other government will try to increase the GDP, increase the ability to repay the debt. use the debt to increase the national income. So there are two approaches to dealing with debt: reduce the debt or increase the GDP. Now, if you're increasing the GDP, you are giving a stimulus to the economy. The government will now have to stimulate the economy. Okay, it may sound something like uh, outdated socialism to some people, but no, this is an important part of the Keynesian approach to economics. The stimulus can be given by the government in the form of strong government spending, which is something that many governments in the Western countries have done. So what happens when you give a stimulus? Look at it from the point of view of our equation. C is equal to um, um, uh, aggregate expenditure, or GDP, is equal to consumption plus investment plus government spending plus net exports. Look at the government spending. The government is spending more. So what will the government do? It's spending more. It's running a deficit. The deficit is going to increase because what's the deficit? The deficit is the difference between the revenue of the government and the spending, the expenditure of the government. So when the government spending is going up, the difference between the revenue and the expenditure of the government is rising. Revenues are not rising as high as as fast as the government expenditure is rising. So the deficit, the budget deficit, the government runs a deficit. But please do keep in mind this deficit is temporary. Over a period of time, the economy will start producing more goods and services, GDP will rise, and then the government can recover high revenues from these uh, people who are producing more because of the progressive tax system. We will look at that in detail. Okay, so there are two things: either increase the GDP or reduce the debt. Now, some governments will try to work on the numerator side of the equation. They will try to reduce the debt. When you try to reduce the debt, now what will happen? You will have to slow the economy down. Okay, you will have to. You are not increasing your GDP now. You are slowing the economy, uh, trying to pay off your debt. So you will have to run austerity measures. There's going to be austerity in the air. Okay, the economy is slowing down. Which is the better approach? I believe that the better approach will be to grow to grow the GDP. Okay, uh, and ensure that the people are uh, producing more. Their ability to produce more goes up. Okay, now there is some deficit that may exist irrespective of government policy. That is called structural deficit. What is the structural deficit? It's the difference between government revenue and expenditure that will exist even if the economy is fully employed. Everyone is working, and the maximum taxes that could be collected are being collected from the people. Okay, this is not austerity. In austerity, the taxes are being collected at a high rate from the people in order to pay off the debt. Let's put it that way. But here, the economy is doing well, and people are paying the maximum taxes, but still the economy is going in a the budget is still going in a deficit. Okay, why is that? Because we cannot grow the economy enough. We cannot grow the economy enough to pay off to pay off to balance the budget. The economy is not growing enough to balance the budget. Okay, so what is the situation of balanced budget? What does it mean? Balanced budget is a situation where the revenue of the government exactly equals its expenditures. Okay, so please do look at the diagram which is on the screen. At any point below Q2, GDP level Q2, the taxes that the government is collecting are less, and the expenditure that the government is doing and the transfer payments that the government is giving are more. So the budget will not be in a balance. Okay, and look at the situation on the right side of Q2. Here the taxes are higher, and the government expenditure, of course, is lower. Therefore, this situation is called a budget surplus. In the middle, where there's a crossover between TX and the G plus transfer line, that is the situation uh, where the budget stands in balance. All right. So what happens in a recession? When there is a recession, okay, your tax receipts go down, okay, but your expenditure automatically rises as people file for benefits. What happens is the government starts paying transfer payments, starts supporting the people. Okay, that's when the government runs a deficit. It's an automatic stabilizer. It's automatic. Okay, why? Because by running this deficit, by making the deficit bigger, the government is actually supporting the economy. The government is actually giving money in the hands of people who need it. Transfer payments are taking place, and this is, in a sense, an automatic stabilizer. Okay. Now, according to Keynes, according to the Keynesian point of view, this is a good thing. Okay, if you are running a deficit in a recession, it's a good thing. Why? Because I am paying money to the people. People are getting the support, and over a period of time, what's going to happen as I give them the money, their incomes will increase, the economy will not go in a downward spiral, the GDP will not fall drastically, and this recession will pay for itself later on as people's incomes remain stable. Because remember, this increase in deficit becomes an automatic stabilizer. This then means that people will be in the future in a position to pay the taxes, and my revenues will increase later on. So this deficit is it's a temporary increase in the deficit, and this deficit has the potential to pay itself off. Of course, this point of view is not shared by the classical economists. They believe that the budget should always be in balance. Okay, and we will see now why it is not, according to the Keynesians, why it is not a good idea to keep the budget in balance always. And that is what we will look at in the next video. Thank you very much.